Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode for your favorite podcast, my favorite podcast. Not being biased, but Unscrambled Faith. I'm your host, Megan Hammonds, and welcome to a new week, a new episode. Last episode, I dug in a little bit, discussed a little bit, got on my soapbox a little bit, let's be honest. Talking about the post-divorce friendships that have come and gone. There's a season, there's a reason. I more importantly didn't want to get into last episode and have that the main focus of that episode because I knew that I didn't want it to be really lengthy and long, and I really wanted it to be something that I just kind of shared openly, wholeheartedly with you all in one episode, if that makes sense. I didn't want to overload, and I knew that I was in a headspace last time that I recorded where I genuinely know myself enough to where I didn't want to rush it, and I also wanted to be more honest, more raw, but at the same time didn't really want to take up too much of y'all's time. So that's what this episode is for. So if you're in a season, even if you can't relate to, you've been divorced before, maybe you're in the middle of a divorce, but if you can't relate to that, perhaps you can relate to, maybe you've had somebody in the past that you've been really close with, best friends, close friends, whatever you want to call it, soul sisters, and maybe perhaps that, friendship dissipated. It doesn't exist anymore. It could be maybe when you think about somebody that you used to be friends with, maybe you were on the other side of things where you didn't receive closure. Maybe you were the one that was left and you have so many answers or questions that were unanswered. Or maybe you're like myself, where you've had to make some really tough calls, tough decisions. You're maybe perhaps in a new chapter, a new place in your life. But nonetheless, this episode is for you. Before we dive into the good stuff, let's catch up as far as what's been going on with me in this last week or two. So I'm really proud of myself for getting back and getting consistent with going to my Hot Works classes. As a matter of fact, full transparency, this is the outfit that I have on right now is pretty much the outfit that I wore since this morning. When I'm recording, today is Tuesday that I'm recording this podcast, and Tuesdays for me typically are self-care, more importantly, as y'all know if you've been hanging out with me for a while, therapy Tuesdays. But I went to my nail appointment this morning, which if you're watching the video, I'll show you a little sneak peek action of my nails. Very excited, by the way. On a side note that I came up with this design on my own. I'm getting ready in a couple of days. Well, I say a couple of days, like 2 days from now. Lately, I am loving going to the movie theaters. More importantly, more specifically, whenever the movie theater is putting on like concerts. I love music. I love concerts, but I don't like when it's like overly crowded. I also am not a fan of overly priced tickets as well. Not to mention the whole plan, you know what I mean? Like if you're a concert goer or you used to, it just doesn't appeal to me anymore. But what does appeal to me is the fact that AMC, Cinemark, all these theaters are putting on concerts, showing movies, and I'm here for it. I'm loving it. It's like a brand new concert experience for me. So this Thursday night, I'm excited because I'm a big fan of Billie Eilish. And that's my nails. My nails were inspired by kind of like her mood and her era where she's at in her life right now. So it's got kind of like a cool, I would say cool collective, a little moody, but still polished at the same time. But I love it and I'm super excited. But yeah, so I went and got my nails done today, and then I had therapy later on. But in between, I knew I was going to have a little bit of free time. So I knew that it was important for me to go work out earlier in the day. Usually I work out in the evenings, but I honestly wanted to not only get it done, but I also will say that I was looking forward to it. But at the same time, I knew that I wanted to come home early today and record this podcast. And I knew that if I worked out this evening, I more likely was not going to be in the mood to record. So, if that makes any sense. I had to kind of just rearrange my day just to make sure the podcast recording was utmost important to me. So I did that, worked out. Lately, I've been trying a couple of, I don't know if y'all are familiar with HotWorks or not, but I'm a huge advocate for it. Not only do I find that the sauna, the infrared heat within each of the rooms where I'm working out each time helps with my muscles. So for the longest time, for who even knows how long, as long as I can remember, I've struggled with like chronic neck, chronic lower back pain. However, I've noticed, also doing like obviously living healthier, making healthier decisions with other different things, but coinciding with that, adding in is attending the HotWorks classes. But just, I would say overall, just moving my body in general, because I will be first and foremost, like full transparency moment. The last couple years, didn't really move my body hardly at all, like at all. And if I did, it was exhausting. I hated it. I wasn't consistent with it. I maybe did some things here and there, but it was certainly not as I've been with HotWorks. Because I think, I want to say, I think like a week or two from now, I think I've attended over 34 classes so far, if I'm not mistaken, which is really great considering it hadn't been that long since I started. I want to say, I think I started, well, I don't know. I don't want to be wrong, but excuse me. I think it was like a month and a half ago is when I started, I believe, HotWorks, something like that. But anyways, I'm going to get off that little tangent. But that's my little plug-in for that. Moving my body feels good. Today felt good. I really honestly needed it. I've had a really crazy last week or two. Funny, not funny, my AC went out. And if you've ever been in that situation, it is not pleasant. However, this time around was really nice because not only am I living in a smaller space, but also I had a fan that the AC company borrowed out to me, or I should say a fan. It's more like a portable air conditioning unit, which I absolutely am here for it because I do not like the heat. However, one thing that I thought was very interesting is that I've noticed since doing the infrared sauna heat and working out with the HotWorks classes, my body now is almost a little bit more like acclimated to heat exposure. And normally I wouldn't be like that. Normally I would be having like hot flashes. I would be sweating. I otherwise wouldn't like the heat. And in a situation when your AC goes out, all you can honestly do is laugh about it. So that's what I did. I laughed about it. And I told my friends, I said, you know what? I have been attending HotWorks classes. I've been training for a reason. I've been getting my body adjusted to serious heat. And I'll tell y'all what, it has been a little over a week since my AC went out. And when it did, the temperatures were climbing close to about 80 degrees in the house. I think it was maybe about 79. I think 79 was almost the highest that I got. And you're talking to somebody that I'm used to having the air at like a controlled 69, 68. And I normally don't waver from that. And I take pride in that because I will say that I will work as hard as I can to make sure I'm paid that bill. I'm fine with paying a higher electricity bill because I want to be comfortable. So with the air climbing up to almost 80 degrees, yeah, y'all, that was just not pleasant. Not pleasant at all. So thank you, HotWorks, for, like I said, getting my body comfortable enough to where the 78, 79 with like one small fan for a while, it did its job. But yeah, but that's basically what's going on with me. I'm actually in the middle of adding into my resume because I'll be applying to places that are hiring. As I mentioned in the last episode, my second job just recently ended for the season because it was tax related. So now I'll be moving on and looking for either a second part-time job or one full-time job. So we'll see how that goes. So wish me luck. But that's currently what I'm working on also this week, is editing my resume, updating that as well. Also have an appointment tomorrow, which I am like not looking forward to it, but I have to do it because adulting is hard. But I have an appointment to update my social security card. not really thrilled about that. That was something that I try to take care of, try to get taken care of as soon as my divorce was finalized. And I sent all the paperwork off that they needed. However, they sent me a letter back and said, hey, we're going to need more information from you. Yeah, so that's a whole thing. I will add in a little plug that if you're listening to this and you're either planning on getting married one day soon, yeah, my little plug-in for that is to make sure and keep your maiden name and then add your married name. But more importantly, keep your married name. Because I feel like that this situation would be a lot harder had I not done that. So I'm very much ready to get that appointment over with tomorrow. Because here's the thing, if you didn't know this, your social security card is pretty much your lifeline. There are 2-3 things that I need to switch over back to my maiden name for legal purposes, just to update who I am. And a lot of that can't be done until you get your social security card updated. So I love that for myself. I'm ready to get that over with tomorrow. But yeah, so that's pretty much what my life has been like lately. Not really anything else that I can think of, other than, like I said, just working on looking at other places to apply to. Right now, I locally plan on, because I haven't had this house for very long, so I plan on writing out the lease until the end of the year. However, I'm happy to say that I'm in a place where I'm open to move out of state, out of the county, but out of state as well. I love to travel, so I think that's one of the things I'm hoping that will benefit me with the job application process, is not necessarily having to look for a job, even permanently. I honestly, I'm looking right now into places that I could work at, either at home or in person, but then open to moving to like other locations, if that makes sense. So that's where I'm at right now. Also, for any of y'all that are listening that are fur moms, fur baby mamas, happy early Mother's Day. So depending upon when you listen to this, this next weekend, I believe coming up is Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to those that, either if you're like myself and you're a fur baby mom. Also, I have people that I mentor that are in my life that I am like a mother to. So there's that as well. But cheers to you guys. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, this episode we're going to dive a little bit more into friendships and talking a little bit more getting personal about what's been going on with me and what all of that means. So, one thing that I say a lot is there is a season and there is a reason. So more importantly, there was a season where everything in my life was shifting all at once. So we're talking like the end of last year, whenever I had filed for my divorce, and like mid-October. Yes, mid-October. And around that time, everything was changing, right? Everything was changing, everything was shifting. And I was having to make hard decisions. And I said decisions, like more than one. So, we were talking about looking for 2 part-time jobs, but not a full-time job, outside the home, because that wasn't going to cover all the bills, right? And then looking for a new place and deciding, am I going to live local? Am I going to move? What does that look like? What are the things in this house that I'm taking with me? Trying to balance my mental state, trying to have somewhat of a personal life still, grow closer in my relationship with God. I had a lot of things going all at once. A lot of things that were firing, on all cylinders at me. A lot of decisions that I was not only having to make, but just a lot of big emotions that I was having to process as well. And overall, it was just a lot. And with everything shifting all at once, one of the things that I began to notice was my closest friendships were changing. One of the things that I did notice during the process of when I filed for divorce was that during that particular season, that my friendships were unraveling. And let's kind of like dissect, because I don't want to just be like, all my friends were in the same boat and I had all the same relationships with them, because I really didn't. So without mentioning any names, let's dive in and talk about like each of their individual dynamics, between myself and them. Okay. So there's three very specific people, that I was very close friends with. One of them I've known for, oh man, we'll just say like a handful of years. One of them known for quite some time. And she and I grew really close, and there wasn't honestly a day that we weren't hanging out. And like when we did hang out, which was, I don't know, I'd say maybe like once or twice, maybe like once a week at most. But when we did hang out, we were spending like the whole day together, like sun up to sundown. And we were really close. We traveled together. We had a lot of fun together. One of the things that I noticed, and this was actually, I think, a little bit before, like maybe the year before I even filed for divorce. But one of the things that I noticed was that, I guess we'll go 2 years prior actually, was that the dynamic in our friendship started shifting because we were both business owners. And I noticed that after a little while that we both were working our mindset towards like focusing on our business and balancing life and balancing our business. Really wasn't aligned at that point anymore. And 2 years ago, I realized during that time that I was like, okay, we may not necessarily, when we hang out, we're not really going to hang out and discuss business anymore per se. But then that made me feel good because then I was like, I can lean in more to the friendship side. And it's not necessarily like all business. We can have more fun. It's not going to be, you know what I mean? I guess just not business led. And so that was perfectly fine with me because that honestly took the stress off of me thinking that I needed to have things prepared, things to talk about. It was really more relaxed, really go with the flow, and I really enjoyed the process overall. So that was 2 years ago. I would say a year ago, it then got to where both our lives, things within our lives were shifting and changing. And that's okay still, because I, outside of that specific friendship, had a really other close friend of mine. And one of the things that I know is that different seasons, different chapters of our lives, we're going to get busy, things are going to happen. Maybe the way that we show up for our friends is going to look different than we were showing up for one another a month prior, or the year prior. My thing is with my friendships is that I'm never going to have higher expectations with my friends as far as we need to hang out all the time. Because I have an understanding that, again, people that I call close friends of mine, and this includes myself, is that there are going to be weeks, there are going to be months, there are going to be seasons where we're going to be busier than we were before. And it's about adjusting, right? Adjusting and making room in your friendship. It's not necessarily putting pressure on the friend that has multiple children and expecting them to show up for us at the drop of a hat and go out and hang out at the last minute. That's not a healthy dynamic. That's not a healthy friendship. For me, it's the ebbs and flows. It's checking in with one another, right? Like sending that short text and be like, hey, just thinking of you today. I don't have any expectations whenever I reach out to my friends and let them know that, hey, you were on my heart. Your name was on my heart. Your name was on my mind. Just checking in, just want to say hi. I'm not going to get my feelings hurt when that person doesn't automatically reply back to me because I'm not messaging them to hear back from them and I'm not messaging them to thank them for me thinking of them. That's not the point. The point is just reaching out to them for the sake of reaching out to them. However, in my friendships, I do firmly believe that it is important that at some point you do check in with one another. Like it's what I want to say, it's kind of like a dance, right? I say the same thing in relationships, marriages. It's the same thing in friendships, where it's this understanding that, hey, I know that my friend with multiple kids, that it's certain sports seasons, right? I'm seeing them on social media. I'm talking to her. I know at least that much, right? That she's going to be busy because it's whatever sports season it is, they're going to be busy. And I know that I'm more likely not going to hear as much from her. But I know that because she and I cherish our friendship, that we are going to make a point at least once a month, at least, to touch base and get together with one another. One of the things that I noticed between the specific person and I was that over this past year, I noticed after a while that I was reaching out to them more than they were reaching out to me. And I think it was this like specific video that I came across in like my Instagram algorithm, more than likely, where it mentioned like matching the energy of those that we call our friends. And by matching the energy, what that means is that, let's just say, like, for example, just that, like I said, that I was the one that was constantly reaching out to this person. I was the one that was constantly making plans, and it just felt very one-sided. And my thing is that whenever I started going through my divorce, it didn't dawn on me that this specific friend and I were further apart than I ever thought until after I told them that I was filing for divorce. And then it was almost like it just went silent. Like airwaves silent. And when I came across that video, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try that out. I'm going to match their energy. I'm not going to reach out to them. And I'll never forget, there was this one specific day. I was out and about, and I was doing some deliveries. I was working like a little side business, little side gig. And I was doing some deliveries for this business. And I was having a really hard day. And I tried reaching out to this particular person. And this wasn't the first time that I had reached out to them. And they cut my conversation short. I should say. It was very, very one-sided. They would answer the phone. They would cut me off. It just always felt like that they were just too busy. Like, too busy to hear from me. Too busy to talk to me. They were always constantly distracted. My thing is that what I've gotten to is like when someone's giving me a call, or whatever, that sounded so weird. Whenever someone's calling me and I have something that I'm literally doing, like let's just say, for example, like right now I'm recording this podcast, right? If I saw that somebody was calling me, I'm not going to answer the phone and say, hey, let me give you a call back. I'm in the middle of something. Like, I'm not gonna answer the phone. I'm not gonna talk to them. Now, I could send like a quick reply. You know how that is, like how you can send a quick reply and just be like, hey, I'll call you back later. I'll probably do something like that, just out of common courtesy. But it's important to me to not only respect my own space, my own boundaries, but in return, if I have a friend that actually has taken the time to reach out to me, my time and their time is valuable, and it means a lot to me that they thought of me in a way to either like text or call, send me a funny video, whatever the case may be, but they're reaching out to me, right? Because they could reach out to anybody else. They didn't have to, but they did. But my thing is too, is that I will make time for my friends. I will make sure that, now, if I'm having like a bad day, I'll be honest with them. Like, I'm not really feeling it. It's not a vibe. Let's do it some other time. Whatever the case may be. But when it comes to my friendships, I go hard for my friends. Like, I show up for them like nobody's business. And in a way that you would honestly show up for somebody in a relationship, if I'm being honest. And one of the things that I noticed whenever I filed for divorce this last year was that this particular person was just pulling further and further away from me. Now, I have come to know over the years that friendships come and go, again, seasonally. This specific friendship was really hard, and I would say quite frankly, it could possibly be one of the hardest friendships that I've had to walk away from. And it was something that I talked about in therapy. I absolutely did not want to do it. But at the same time, whenever I started self-reflecting and looking back on like the year prior, it was like, I am showing up more. It's very one-sided. And especially going through like a season where you're having to make ultimately one of the toughest decisions to leave somebody that you thought you were going to spend the rest of your life with, making that tough choice and also making all these other decisions around me. It just felt like, as simple as it sounds, it just felt like it just seemed like it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to me. And I had little to no energy to even spiral out, to contemplate, to work through at that time, specifically at the end of last year, to even process or give any kind of thought to why this person wasn't reaching out to me, why this specific friend, why I wasn't hearing from them as much. And when I did, I remember the very specific time, just like in my marriage, like when there was these very specific moments over the last couple years that was just like, yeah, this isn't good. Or I know my marriage is ending, or my marriage has ended and I'm done. It was the same way in this specific friendship where all of the signs were there. And it was like, I deserve more. I deserve more. And it's very sad because in this specific friendship, I never once needed this person in my life more than I did during that season. And they let me down. They weren't there for me. They let me down. And I will say, whenever I circled back and came to into my new chapter, my new space this year, I remember it was a couple months ago when I'm also the type of person, and I'm really trying to work through because I don't necessarily enjoy this part about me, but I feel like that I owe someone an explanation and closure. And that's really bugged me for the longest time, is that I was putting this immense pressure on myself after I got divorced, after I moved out, after I got into my new house, after I got settled in, to where I was just like, should I contemplate, should I reach out to them? Should I send them a text message? Should I call them? Should I meet up with them? Because here's the thing, is that I don't want to be friends with this person anymore. I feel like that, again, reason and a season, our friendship has come to a halt, not to a halt, but to an end. And it sucks the way that it did end, but at the same time, I just don't think I can bounce back from that. I'm like, where do you go from there? Now, one of the biggest parts of why I felt this ridiculous and absurd pressure on myself to give this person closure is it wasn't even for me. It was closure for them. And the reason being is that there was this specific story that they had told me long while back, where they had this other friend of theirs that kind of in a way did the same thing, just walked away from their friendship, didn't give them any kind of closure, didn't give a reason as to why. And my thing is that where I feel very strongly for is that I'm now in a space where I don't want to explain myself. I shouldn't need to explain myself. I don't need to back up the way that I feel. I don't need to help somebody feel good about the decisions that I'm making for myself. It's not their emotions, their feelings are not my responsibility. And that's where I keep telling myself right now, going into this chapter, this season of mine, where I'm letting myself off the hook. And yes, it's very sad. And I spent some time, and I will say there are moments where I still have moments where I'm missing hanging out with that person. It's not the same, but at the same time, I'm thinking about what was and not what is. I know that going into the rest of this year, that there more likely will be moments where we might have some run-ins with one another. But I can confidently say that I'm in a better headspace, it seems like, that because I don't have any negative emotions or feelings with that friendship. It was just kind of it ended. It's the end of an era, and ending, putting a period basically at the end of that friendship. And I'm in a place in my life now where I don't want to sit here and fill the space with unnecessary words and unnecessary conversation. And I just don't have anything else to say about it. But if you're in a space, if you're in a place in your life where you have somebody that you have been really close friends with, maybe perhaps someone that you saw your friendship not ending at any point. However, the universe, God is leading you, Holy Spirit is leading you in a direction where maybe you're like myself and it's really hard for you guys to get together to make plans. It could be that maybe you're feeling like you're outgrowing a friendship. One of the most toughest things that I've experienced recently was having this gap of loneliness, of feeling alone. Now, I know I'm not alone in my relationship with God, but when it came to my friendships, now I have one really good friend of mine that I refer to as my soul sister. That's my ride or die. Our friendship has had a lot of ebb and flows over the years. We've known each other, I want to say, I think almost 6-7 years now, give or take. And that is my person. Like, she and I, our friendship will stand the test of time. But there's others that have been trickled in between over the last 6-7 years. Friendships that have come and gone. Now, I had 2 other really good friends of mine that I've known since high school. And one really beautiful thing over the course of like this last year, maybe 2 years almost, was that collectively we all three would have like the best time. We ended up getting together. We ended up hanging out at least once a month. I love a good theme. You'll know I love a good theme. And so we would get together and we would do different things, whether it was at my house, their house, go out and do something, you name it. But we got together at least a minimum once a month. Absolutely loved it. Looking back on it, even though it was really tough, I know that those 2 individuals were a part of my life, yes, for like a short period of time, but just the sheer fact that we were able to rekindle a friendship of we knew each other through high school, and even though we didn't really all three hang out all at once, we knew of each other in a way that getting our little reunion together was exactly what I needed during this last year prior to filing for divorce. One of the toughest things was I had one specific friend of mine out of that dynamic that had offered to help me out during the time of filing for my divorce. They offered to me to have a space to live, have a place of my own to live in their home. That was really moving to me, honestly. It was not something that I expected. I knew that when I filed for divorce back in October that I had very little time. Now, obviously, I could have kept living there, but I knew that I wanted to be out of the house by the time that not only the divorce was finalized, but also figuring out, are we selling the house? Is my ex keeping the house? Whenever my ex was like, okay, I'm going to keep the house. And then at that point, it was like, okay, well, I knew I was moving out, either way. But I knew that during that time that I needed somewhere to stay, and I needed to figure that out fast. So one of my other friends had reached out to me and was like, hey, whenever your divorce is finalized, you're more than welcome to move into my house. I have an extra room. We even, she even went to like great lengths of me going over there, and then we walked through the space and we were talking about which room, was going to serve what purpose for us. And y'all, we were making plans. And I don't take these things lightly. Like, just the fact that somebody was offering and opening up their home to me, especially on such short notice, like, this was really moving for me. Like, this meant so much to me that one of my good friends would allow me not only into their space, but I felt safe. I felt taken care of. I felt loved. During a time of uncertainty, during a season where so many things were up in the air, and I didn't have really much to rely on other than my faith, having someone step in and be like, hey, I'm going to be a blessing to you and open up my home to you, moved me, touched my heart. It was the best thing that somebody could have done for me. However, shortly after, that same person had reached out to me, not in person, keep in mind, but through text. So there's that. I'll leave you to decide how you feel about that. But this specific person reached out to me through text and was like, hey, so many words, basically backed out. of like saying like, hey, I thought about it. It's not a good idea that you move in. It's going to move up. It's going to create a lot of stir up a lot of trauma for me. I'm worried about how this is going to go. My thing is okay, yeah, you've had maybe bad past experiences where you've gotten burned, but it questioned my character, honestly. That's how it made me feel. Like, it questioned my character. I will say one thing that I do respect was the fact that this person presented all their messiness, their red flags right out the gate. Like, for this person, for my friend to be like, hey, just so you know, this is what I've been going through. You moving in might stir up some of this stuff. I'll be honest with y'all. At that moment, I was so crushed and so hurt. I didn't even think that there was like another level of feeling hurt, because it was almost like my friends were just like disappearing like one after another. And it was like, what the hell? Like, I'm by myself. I'm standing by myself. I'm all alone. I have no one in my corner. I have no one that I can talk to about all this mess. I have to keep this all to myself, at least until the following Tuesday in therapy. And I'm like, what am I going to do in the meantime? And then I have this other friend, that reaches out and they're like, hey, you can move in. I'll give you a temporary space. And my thing is that that's how I was looking at it, was that it was just temporary. Like, I just needed somewhere where I can move my stuff into, catch my breath, get my grounding, and then figure out what's next for me. But they took that away. And one of the things for me was that, okay, yes, I appreciate your honesty and letting me know up front, because y'all, thinking about how I could have possibly moved in and that play out even then after moving in, and it would have, it could have gone so wrong. So I will say that I do appreciate the honesty of this person, of this friend, reaching out to me, being honest with me, letting me know, like, hey, you know what? I changed my mind. It's not really going to be a good decision. But one thing that really was like a huge red flag for me, that was like, that's interesting, was the fact that the very beginning of their message was like mentioning their parent. Like, hey, I was talking with my parent, and this is what they said, and et cetera, et cetera. And just like the tone and the vibe of this specific message was very apparent that this decision wasn't solely made on their own, that there was a heavy influence within that message that didn't really quite sound like them. But I'm going to be honest, like, the whole situation was very sketch. I was very iffy about it. And I was like, you know what? Thank you, God. Like, thank you for letting me know ahead of time. This is not the move for me. This is not the decision for myself. And I'm really glad about how, and really happy about how it played out, even though that definitely did ultimately change the dynamic between that person and I and our friendship. But getting into my own space, finding my own house, that was the best decision that I could have made for myself. Now, as far as our friendship is concerned, even though I was grateful and I was thankful that this person was very honest with me about how they felt, one thing that I can't respect, can't appreciate at all, is the fact that they backpedaled and was like, because I'm thinking like, okay, first off, you offered your space. I did not ask to move in with you. And when they were like, hey, I can't help you out here, but let me know what else I can do for you, I was thinking, well, I did let you know what you could do for me, and you let me down on that. And in that moment, because once again, going back to the fact that like I was in the middle of filing for divorce, everything that I said earlier, I don't really need to repeat it. Like, I was going through such a tough time where I was like barely keeping my head above water, barely keeping it together, trying to balance looking forward to a brighter new chapter, a new future for myself, but at the same time balancing what it was actually like living in the same house as my soon-to-be ex-husband. And then, once again, having a friend that's disappointing me, letting me down, not showing up for me in a way that I needed them to show up for me. And my thing is that whenever someone shows me like their true colors, whenever they show up in a way that they present exactly who they are, I can't come back from that. And I don't want to, because the old version of me honestly would have buried that deep down and then been like, you know what? It happens. It's all good. Don't even worry about it. And it would have bothered the shit out of me. It would have bothered me to no end. And I would have just pushed it down deep and sucked it up and then be like, oh, I can't lose this friendship, and I'm willing to, you hurt me, you betrayed me, you let me down, all of the things. But you know what? I don't want to not be without a friend. So let me just stuff this down deep and put this aside, and I'm going to forget all the things about how you made me feel because I want to still keep a hold on our friendship. No. Like, y'all, I knew in that moment that as hard as it was in my best interest to put space between myself and that friend. Now, keep in mind what I said earlier is that there was a trio, right? There was 3 of us. That was one of the 3. The other one, she and I, like, as far as I was concerned at that time this last year, was really good friends. I don't even to this day, I don't have anything to say at all. Our friendship was good. However, this specific person I know has a really kind, really big heart. And all that they wanted was peace. All that they wanted was like for us 3 to come together, for us to be friends again. But I just could not get past that. And I knew that I did not want to put the third party in our friendship. I did not want to put her in a position where she had to kind of like go back and forth between like shared custody, like shared friends, if that makes sense. Having to go back and forth and balance as 2. And so I just took myself out of the equation. I knew that them 2 were going to be like the best of friends. And I could tell that right out the gate, even when it was just us, when it was us 3, the 2 of them were really close. And I was like, you know what? The best thing for me to do is excuse myself out of this friendship. And yes, it did suck because that third person I was still friends with. I mean, who knows how she feels at this point. But again, I'm working on, not worrying about more about myself and not as much of, oh, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings, or I want to make sure you feel okay with the decisions that I'm making. At the end of the day, I hope all the best for her, all the best. And you know what? I'm going to be honest. All the best for all 3 of my friends that I released last year, that I walked away from their friendships, this past season, the end of this last year. I wish nothing but the best for them. However, I've noticed that where I'm at in this space, in my life, whether it's, being newly single, whether it's not having any children, whether it's, everything that was a part of me, I'm leaving behind in last year. And I've noticed that my personality has shifted, the way I carry myself has shifted, and the way I want to approach my friends friendship alone is very different now. I will say too that aside from them, I noticed that there were other friends of mine, acquaintances, I'll say, over this last year. If and when they found out that I was getting divorced, I would say, I couldn't help but notice that they may have like struggled on how to show up for me. I had friends that I personally chose not to share any of my business with. Because here's the thing, once again, circling back to what I was saying earlier, same thing, I had minimal energy. I had minimal time. The time and energy that I did have was used to brush up my resume, apply for jobs, find a house to live. My priorities had shifted. I was living my life. I was trying to find me again, love me again. And in that space, I personally don't want to air my personal business out on social media like that, let alone have like this phone tree situation where I'm doing like a group text with my friends and my work acquaintances. And I'm like, hey, just so you know, y'all, I'm getting a divorce. I'm not that person. I'm not the person. And I think that some of my business colleagues, some of my friends, my acquaintances that I've met through businesses, I don't know. I can't help but think that maybe some of them expected that for me to give them a call and be like, oh, you know what? I just really got to talk to you. I'm going through a divorce. Or I'm filing for divorce. No, not me. That's not me. The thing is too is that even aside from like having some friends of mine that just didn't know how to show up, I also had friends that I feel like, chose signs, even if it was kind of like silently. And some of them are kind of, I've noticed, still in kind of the process of that as they're trying to like get an overall feel of the vibe of like what happened, what's your story, what's their story. Just trying to figure out like where do we fit into all this. I've noticed though some people, when I'm going about my life, when I'm running into them in public, running errands, all that, every so often I'm seeing those type of people, those type of friends. And then because again, unless they're watching my podcast, they probably don't know went down, what would happen, and they're not gonna know. And again, unless they listen to the podcast, because I'm just at a point, I want to be honest with y'all, I'm at a point where I don't want to talk about my divorce and the depths that I did through the episodes of this podcast. That is the only space other than my very best friend, my soul sister, and my therapist. That's it. That's it. And it was almost like, let's get this all out. Let's process this. Let's talk about it. And we're going to leave it at that. And I think that there are people that I'm coming across now over the last couple months because, you know what, working from home over the last couple years, other than traveling, I really didn't have much of a social life. Really didn't. And if I did, it was with the same people over and over. So now that I have more of a variety of places that I'm like showing up and things that I'm doing, and having fun and putting myself out there, I am running into like more people than that I've known in the past than I had before in the last couple years. And so, yeah, it's, sometimes it's awkward and it is what it is. But the thing is that, some of them are like, hey, by the way, I saw your name changed on social media. By the way, I heard from so-and-so that you're not married anymore. Or maybe they noticed that I'm not wearing my ring anymore. Isn't that interesting? How it's like, okay, you're not going to ask me about how my businesses are going. You're not going to ask me how I'm doing. You just want the tea. You just want the details. You just want the tea. And I will say there is a reason why those specific people are not in like my inner circle, right? Those are the kind of people that when you're going through a tough thing like this, that, yeah, I don't have space for you. I don't have energy for you. I'm not taking the bait. And it's crazy because I could probably take a full hour, which I'm not, but I could take like a full hour possibly and walk you all through, as you're listening to this episode, all the different things that I've told people just to give them a little something. And not a lot, not like a whole story, but it's like, oh, we decided to go our separate ways. Or what's the other one? Oh, I outgrew the marriage. But here's the thing. Here's the bottom line. It doesn't matter what you tell somebody. I've noticed it's not going to be enough for them. It's not enough. Also, I've outgrown a lot of my friendships. And I am more than happy with that. Because to me, if you've outgrown a friendship or friendships, that means that you are continually working on a better version of yourself. That means that you're growing. That means that you're making progress. You're not staying stuck. I've noticed recently that I've had some friends of mine, not necessarily like real close friends, but people, that again, like I see off and on, whether through business or, if I'm out and about doing things for fun, whatever the case may be. But whenever I'm running into them, I noticed that there's a very specific group of friends that I've definitely distanced myself from because they're expecting the old version of myself. Like some of them are, like, hey, let's do some Zoom calls. Or they're like, oh, we should get lunch sometime. Or we should go get coffee. My thing is that this is my advice. If you're listening now and you have friends that you are close with, that you want to hang out with, please do me a favor. Reach out to them. And not only just reach out to them, but you make the plans with them. one of the things that I hear so often is people that I'm either sitting down having a conversation with, or I kind of, I maybe meet them in passing, right? Like you're in the grocery store, or I don't know, like maybe you're at an event somewhere and you happen to cross paths, and there's always that person that's like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. We should get coffee sometime. I miss you. Or let's go get lunch sometime. My thing is why can't you give me specific dates and times and let me choose? It's kind of like when you go to like a doctor, right? Or a dentist, somewhere you're making an appointment. And they're like, hey, let's make an appointment for next year. And then you're like, great. Then they give you months, right? They're like, okay, let's look at next June, 2027. That's weird saying that, 2027. And then they give you times, right? They give you specific days. You look at your calendar, they look at their calendar. Why can't we do that in our friendships? My truth, my belief is that those that are in passing, that are just casually like, I miss you, we should get lunch sometime, they don't genuinely mean it. And that's what I'm standing on, is that they don't genuinely mean it. They're doing it to be nice, they're doing it to be kind. Because my thing is that if I genuinely wanted to hang out with you, I am going to message you and say, hey, these are the days next week that I have free. What works for you? That is showing up for your friends. There's a difference. There's a difference. Hopefully, I don't know if y'all can relate to that or not, but nothing makes me more sure of where I stand in our friendship than when somebody casually mentions that without like a specific date and time. And y'all know what? I'm over being the person that is making the plans. I don't want to make the plans. I made the plans for the last couple years in my own marriage, whether it was like date stuff, hanging out, traveling, and I'm done with that. Like I'm done. Now I will say that I will not ever contact my friends and give them dates and times to hang out and do stuff. But again, just like it's important for us to show up and take turns in different seasons of our lives for our friends. If your friend is going through a tough time, if they maybe just lost a family member, maybe Mother's Day weekend is coming up and it's a really tough time for them, that is not a time for you to wallow and be like, I need my friend to be there for me. It's their turn. No, it's your turn. Text them, message them, let them know you're thinking of them. Show up for them without actually asking them what they need. You know what I mean? Like if they're a coffee person, go by, grab their favorite coffee, grab a coffee for them, drop it off at their office, drop it off at their front door, mail them from something from Amazon. Who cares? But you know what I mean? It's important to have that push-pull, that balance. When it's not balanced out, you're pouring from an empty cup. You're not showing up for yourself. Like my thing is that I show up for my friends in a way that I'm going to show up for myself. Yeah, and that's super important to me because to me it's like if you can look at your friendships and do some deep diving if you're showing up for them or not showing up for them, to me that's a big reflection on yourself. To me it's like if you're not showing up for yourself, if you're not mentally, spiritually, physically showing up for yourself in that way, how could you possibly show up and be the best version of yourself for your friends? And my thing is that I want to pour into my friends, not necessarily expecting them to pour into me back whenever I need it, but to know that it's like, be so self-aware of what's going on with them because it's more about them, less of me. I can take care of myself in the meantime. I don't necessarily through therapy, through showing up through church services, through prayer, through my Bible study, y'all, they're listening to worship music. There are so many different ways that I'm pouring into myself, that I'm taking care of myself mentally, spiritually, physically, all the above. But because of that, I'm now able to be in a space where I can show up for my friends. Yeah. And that's a little soapbox on that. It's like just balance. It's all about balance. Walking away from my friendships this last year felt like I said before, like grief. Even when I knew that it was the right decision, I knew that it was important for me to grieve grieve those friendships, those memories, and to know that, yes, we had really great times, we had a lot of fun, but that's not necessarily worth holding on to when you're outgrowing your friendship, when you're moving into like a new chapter, a new space. You don't want to hold on to that because that's the past. If you can't see your friendships moving on with you as you're changing, if they're not growing with you, then it's time to bless and release them. Even if you find you could even be in a space where you're second guessing yourself and you're like, am I being a bad friend? Do I need to maybe am I, like, one of the things that I know that I had to work really hard on, specifically these last couple years, is that whenever my friends are going through a really tough time, and let's just say that something really good was happening to me, and I was in a good space, I felt this immense amount of guilt for my success, for maybe perhaps at the time, and I say at the time, that my marriage was going great, going well, getting better. Or maybe perhaps it was that I myself was feeling better. Whatever the case may be, I dimmed my light in my own friendships for fear that I was going to look bad, that I was like boasting too much, right? Like that I was bragging too much, that I was too much. But my thing is that to me was like a flag and a wake up call, y'all, in itself, was that when I couldn't feel that I could be 100% myself in my friendships, that says something. That says something as far as the space that they're not holding for me. If I cannot go to the people that I call my closest friends, my best friends, and let them know of the good things that are happening in my life, and I feel bad about it, what does that say? What does it say not only about our friendship, but lack thereof? And what does that say more importantly about me? Loneliness is not the best feeling to be in a space where you're making all these decisions and so much thing also at the same time is out of your control. Loneliness is not a good feeling, but at the same time, I knew that over the course of like landing my jobs, getting into my own home, I knew that loneliness also came with peace. I knew that at this point, because I was in fight or flight mode, or at least, if not longer than the last year or two, I knew that it was imperative for me, once I got into my own house and my own space, for me to nurture myself. And that meant that I was going to have to give myself more quiet time, more space, more peace, controlling more or less the noise that's like on the outside, the things that you can control. So again, that's walking away from those toxic friendships, walking away from the friendships that are no longer serving you, putting space between those people that maybe perhaps don't understand what you're going through, don't know what to say. It's like, it's not our responsibility to help them in the process. Like, that is their own growth in their own time. In the meantime, we have to look out for ourselves, right? And again, it's important to like let go of the history, not just the people that are no longer serving us in this new chapter for yourself, and this new, as you're moving forward, as you're making progress for your life. It's so important to cherish the memories, but not necessarily holding on to the history, because history is not going to be what's going to feed your soul in the time to come, like in the future. History is history. It's behind you for a reason, and it needs to be left there, on all honesty. The hard truth is that not everyone is meant to walk with you into your next chapter. That was one of my hard truths, was that as much as I wanted to like gather up my friends and pull them and hold them closest to my heart and bring them with me into this next step that I was making for myself, I knew that that was just not possible. And whether God stepped in and intervened, or it was something that I saw myself, it was ultimately the hardest decisions that I had to make, aside from filing for divorce. But I knew that it was just going to be dead weight, that it was just going to be more exhausting to keep reworking and giving energy into these friendships that were very one-sided, especially coming from myself that had, again, little to no energy to give. in the first place. Staying connected out of history that you have with somebody in your friendship, whether even if it's comfort or guilt, can delay you in your progress and your healing. It can delay you in your progress and your healing. Some of the lessons that I've learned over this past year, specifically letting go of those friendships of mine, was that discernment is deeper than loyalty. And what I mean by that is that whatever your gut, whatever your heart, whatever Holy Spirit, like whatever you're being led to make the decision on, whatever feels like, ooh, you know what, that didn't seem right. Like, I had moments specifically with one of my closest friends this last year that I could think of. There were certain moments where I was just like, oh, that's different. Or they would say something to me, or they would send me a message, or there was something somehow they would make me, the way they would make me feel that didn't sit right with me. That's discernment. That's knowing that, like, again, this friendship is no longer serving me. There is no longer a greater purpose for this friendship. And it's a matter of discerning and knowing, like, okay, it's time for me to put some, again, space, walk away from these friends that are no longer serving me, and to know and trust that God's got you. Because this is not my first season of walking away from friendships that did not serve me. Over the last at least 15 years, I can recall a lot of close friends that I've had where one way or another, I've had to end our friendships, and I've had to walk away from, whether we had a conversation and got that closure with one another, or maybe perhaps I didn't get an opportunity, or I didn't want to have that conversation with them, and it is what it is. And I know that I've talked about this in like a year ago or so too, where it was like, I've had many seasons where I have had to walk away from really close friends of mine. And the thing is that I'm not going to lie, full transparency. Like, if you have not been in a situation like that, it is very lonely. It is very hard. And also I'll say that if you're in a space where you're like myself, and I remember there was a time where I didn't have any friends at all, and I felt very lonely. And you could be just, I don't know, maybe it could be that you don't have the time. Maybe you're super busy. Or it could be that you're trying to put yourself out there. You're trying to connect with people and nothing is just sticking. Trust me when I say, take a deep breath. Keep doing the work within yourself. Trust God. Pray about it. God is going to align you with the right people in the right time, and just talk to God about it. Have a conversation with God about it, and invite God into a space of, God, I want you to bring people into my life that I can pour into, that I can connect with, whether they're here for a reason or a season. Connect me with people that I can share my testimony with, that I can, pour my heart out to, or vice versa, that maybe they have something to share with me, some guidance for me, whether it's for a short amount of time or a long period of time. Those people are going to cross your path. I believe it in my heart. I believe it in my spirit. It's important to pay attention. One of the other lessons that I've learned is that it's important to pay attention to who can hold space for you again versus who needs you to stay the same. Stay the same. One of the key things that you might hear from somebody that maybe perhaps you're just like, oh, you're going through this struggle internally, right? Of like, okay, our friendship doesn't feel the same, but I don't want to give up on it. I don't want to either not have any friends anymore. I don't know how to walk away from this friendship. But one of the things, and this goes for honestly for friendships and relationships, if I'm being honest, but one red flag that is just so, so important to listen to is if you have somebody in your life that is like, you know what? I really miss when you used to, or you know what? You're not fun anymore. You're not the same person anymore. You changed. If you have somebody in your life that you can fill in the blank and with their name and be like, this person just came to mind. Because I can say I have been there before. I have definitely been there before where I've had friends where they're just like, you're not fun anymore. Or again, like maybe there's a part of you that they mention that they miss. Or maybe you can just, like, for example, like I think of 2 people right now that have reached out to me in the last month, and they're wanting to do like video chats with me. And I'm going to be honest with y'all, that can be in itself, doesn't matter who it is, sometimes that can be very draining. And I'm also not in, time-wise, I'm not in a space where that's actually working for me. And I know deep down that that's what they're wanting. Like, they want old version of me. They want that high energy. They want that. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm silly. I still like to have fun. I like to make people laugh. I can joke around. I'm sarcastic. But I'm just not this. I'm very mellowed out now. I'm very calm. I'm very mellowed out. I don't really have as much to say unless you get me on a topic that I'm excited about. Then watch out now. But other than that, I'm a lot quieter nowadays. And that version of myself, I've noticed, is not necessarily sitting well. Like, it's not really what somebody expects. And a lot of times, like, if I'm quieter, people automatically then assume that when you're quiet, that something's wrong with you. And that's not always the case. That's not always the case. It's important to keep in mind that the right people won't require you to shrink or silence your growth. The right friends that are for you, that God has placed in your life, again, are not going to require you to shrink or silence your growth. God will sometimes remove people you didn't have the strength to walk away from on your own in the first place. Woo! I'll say that one more time. God will sometimes remove people you didn't have the strength to walk away from on your own. And I can definitely relate to that one, that's for sure. And overall, at the end of the day, you are allowed to choose peace over proximity. You are allowed to choose peace for yourself, no matter what that looks like, no matter what you've got to do. So, closing up, friendship for me now looks safer, slower, more intentional. I'm not actively looking for friends. And I'm surprisingly at a place where I don't necessarily crave or need that friendship. But I think it's also because there are things that I'm enjoying in my own time. Like, I've started attending classes on the weekend that are like craft classes. I'm reading more. Again, I'm going to my workout classes. I've got 2 jobs. I've got my own personal businesses. So I have things that are definitely keeping me afloat, things that are keeping my mind busy, my days busy, to where I don't necessarily feel like I'm missing out, I'm losing out. I know, because I had met really good friends during my seasonal tax job, I know that God, again, will align and bring the right people into my life when the time's right. And I'm open to, like, letting it naturally happen. And I'm okay with that. More than okay with that. I'm in a place where I'm rooted in honesty, mutual respect, and grace in a way that I feel like I know that I'm in a space now where if God was to bring somebody into my life, friendship wise, that I have so much more to, like, give to them and pour into them. And I just love that there's not as much chaos and static in my life, to where I can be more of, like, a constant peaceful presence for them, and maybe perhaps a season that they're, like, really going through it. Maybe perhaps they're wanting to be on the other side of things, where there's, like, peace and comfort and predictability, and not having as much chaos. And I love that I'm in a place in my life, within my soul, within my heart, where I can balance it out for that person. Now I'm definitely in a place that, as I'm approaching closer to, like, being in my early 40s, I would say that to me at this point with friendship, that it's less about quantity and it's more about alignment. It's honing in to my heart, to my mind, knowing that when someone does cross my path, that I could perhaps strike a friendship up with, that it's just going to, like a puzzle piece, it's just going to feel right. It's just going to connect. It's just going to feel right. It's going to feel genuine. It's going to feel authentic. Just as much as I know going into this new season of my life that I'm open with whomever God has intended for me to spend the rest of my life with. Same thing. Like, I know that it's going to mesh well, that it's going to connect, that it's just going to feel right. Same thing for my friendships. They're just going to authentically happen. But that's it. That's it. I want to thank y'all for hanging out with me. Until next time, don't forget to unscramble your faith and find clarity in the chaos. Thanks, guys.